Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Zoe Regan from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit, and it says, am I the arsehole for ending my relationship? Asking my boyfriend to move out immediately and setting firm boundaries around his dog and finances. It's one of those ones where I automatically want to say, no, not the arsehole, but we'll see, I guess. I'm 23 female and recently ended a nearly 3-year relationship with my boyfriend, 24 male. When I finally ended the relationship, I told him I wanted to be out of my home by the time I returned later that day, and he packed his belongings and left of his own accord. I've since been criticized for being too harsh, especially regarding his dog and unresolved financial issues, so I'm looking for outside perspective on whether my boundaries were unreasonable. When we first started dating, we'd already known each other for some time and had established a level of trust. At the beginning of our relationship, he had just lost a job he had held for about 4 years. Over time, he moved in with me, and we agreed that once he found and retained a job, we would split expenses evenly. That's never happened. From that point forward, I took over all weekly expenses, including rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, and general household costs. I continued covering everything, partly because I needed to keep my household stable, and partly because I wanted to make it as easy as possible for him to focus on finding work. Over the entire relationship, he held 3 jobs total, lasting a combined 6 or 7 months. The rest of the time, I was the sole provider. Over the course of nearly 3 years, I feel I consistently went well beyond my fair share to maintain stability in the relationship, despite repeated efforts to be patient, supportive, and reduce pressure so he could contribute. The responsibility never became balanced. About a year ago, I ended the relationship after discovering he had been messaging other women online trying to meet up. We were broken up from November 2024 to February 2025. During that time, I felt more independent and less stressed. We eventually reconciled after he promised to apply for jobs consistently and contribute financially. As we approached nearly a year since reconciling, none of those promises had been kept. Over the past month, as it became clear that nearly a year had passed without follow-through, I clearly communicated that I needed to see effort. Even something as basic as applying for jobs online because I was struggling financially and emotionally. Nothing changed and I became burned out. During our relationship, he brought his dog to live with me, but was always clear that the dog was his, not mine. I accepted the dog into my home with the understanding that he was present and responsible for the dog's care. When I ended the relationship and he moved out, the dog remained with me temporarily. I agreed to care for the dog until the food ran out or until the new year to avoid putting the dog in a bad situation. Communication around the dog has been inconsistent. He does not currently have stable housing and has asked for extensions without providing concrete dates. The dog escaped once by opening a sliding glass door, which required me to kennel him for safety. I work very long hours, typically 56 to 70 hours a week, and during those hours the dog must remain kenneled. He is not used to kennel and cries for long periods, disturbing my sleep and my neighbors. I do not believe this is a fair or sustainable quality of life for him, and it made it clear that keeping the dog here long term is not in his best interest. I told him clearly that I cannot have the dog in my home past December 31st and asked for a plan by December 29th. If he or family members cannot pick the dog up, I said I would move forward with rehoming the dog or surrendering him to a shelter so he can be somewhere stable. There are also unresolved financial and property issues. During our relationship, he lost a phone his parents had paid for at a friend's birthday party I attended. I purchased a replacement phone on my own plan because I felt responsible and wanted to help. The phone and service are in my name and cannot be recovered even if the phone is returned. When he moved out, he took a television that belonged to him and a Puffco device that belonged to me, which he claims was a gift. I offered clear options to resolve this fairly. Either return the Puffco and television if I continue paying for the phone and service, or pay the remaining phone balance of $524.97, and take over the account so it no longer is in my name. I asked for a response so we could close this out, but I've not received one. There is also an unpaid ticket he received while driving a car in my name, which remains on my record. That car was later repossessed because it was the only bill I could delay without immediate consequence in order to keep my housing and utilities current. At this point, I feel that I set clear boundaries based on my capacity, finances, and responsibility to my household. I'm trying to resolve these issues in a way that avoids further instability or harm, even though that means making difficult decisions. Am I the arsehole? I want to know who the people are that's criticizing OP in this situation. I mean, have they heard this full story? OP supported this man for nearly 3 years. He cheated, or at least tried to, promised to change, and then delivered absolutely nothing. And you gave him a second chance with clear conditions, and he couldn't even manage the bare minimum of applying for jobs when you're working 56 to 70 hours a week trying to keep everything going. As always, I feel bad for the dog in this situation, but, I get where OP's coming from. It doesn't sound like it is a good quality of life for the dog, but New Life says he sounds like a cheating loser mooch, so not the arsehole for breaking up with him. But I would check your local laws regarding the dog and financial questions so you can avoid breaking any laws. I will say, depending on where you live, you may have broken laws by kicking him out the day you asked him to leave. In a lot of places, you have to go through a legal eviction process in order to remove someone from their home, because it was his home too, even though it was your place. OP says he's already left my home on his own accord. The dog is also registered to me in my county because my ex was too broke to pay for registration, even though it's required. Usual Canary says you got yourself a homosexual. Go to small claims court for any property or money of yours he is holding. If December 29th comes without him picking up the dog, Jan 1st proceed with rehoming or surrendering the dog. Cut the leech out of your life completely. You'll realize so much peace by doing that. Not the arsehole. So OP does come in with their update and says, I'm posting this as an update because I followed through on what I said I would do. I'm still being told I was wrong for not continuing to extend myself. Zeus is my ex-boyfriend's dog. When we separated, he left Zeus at my home and communication became limited almost immediately. I worked long hours, already have my own dog, and was clear from the start that I could not care for Zeus indefinitely. I gave my ex multiple verbal and written notices that I needed a concrete plan and a firm pickup date. I clearly told him I could not keep Zeus past December 31st. This was communicated more than once in advance. I did not move the deadline or surprise him. Instead of a plan, I received repeated requests for more time with no timeline. He told me he was saving for a kennel and supplies, but also told me that if he's picked Zeus up, the dog would have to live outdoors in a makeshift setup because he's not allowed to have dogs indoors where he is staying. Zeus has been an indoor dog his entire life. There was also serious practical and safety issues while Zeus was under my care. Zeus escaped my home a total of 3 times because he can open doors. Each time I had to stop everything, search for him, and wait for him to be found and returned by good Samaritans. In total, I missed over 16 hours of work dealing with these incidents. On one occasion, I chose not to kennel him because I felt bad, and he had explosive diarrhea throughout my home. I had to deep clean my carpets myself and ultimately dispose of my $200 carpet cleaner because it was contaminated with feces. This was not a minor inconvenience. It caused financial loss, health concerns, and additional stress on top of an already overwhelming situation. Zeus also has an untreated yeast infection in his ears that was identified months ago when my ex was still living with me. Initial drops were tried and did not resolve the issue. After that, no further veterinary care was pursued. I was not financially or logistically able to take over medical care for a dog that is not mine, especially while working 56 to 70 hours a week. I gave my ex a final deadline and told him clearly that if I did not receive a concrete plan by that date, I would move forward with surrendering Zeus so he could receive proper care and be placed somewhere stable. He did not respond by the deadline. I followed through and surrendered Zeus to the Humane Society, which is a no-kill facility, so he could receive medical care, supervision, and a stable path forward. I informed my ex afterwards. I did not abandon the dog or leave him unsafe. I took him somewhere equipped to handle his needs. Only after this did my ex respond angrily, saying he just needed more time and accusing me of being unreasonable. At that point, the decision had already been made after weeks of warnings, deadlines, and escalating issues. This was not done out of spite. It was done because continuing to wait with no plan, repeated escapes, property damage, untreated medical issues, and an unsafe proposed living situation was not fair to the dog or to me. So, am I the arsehole for following through on a boundary I clearly communicated and enforcing it when nothing changed? Slight Leg says to OP, not the arsehole, and anyone telling you are is an idiot. You did the best thing for the dog and for your sanity. Professor says not the arsehole. It'd be better for the dog in the long run to be with a family that can take care of him. Music with Roxin says the guy hasn't had a stable job in years. No way he was going to get a place where he could keep a dog even within a couple of months. His plan right now is probably to find a new girl to mooch off of, and that's going to take him a few months at least before she'll let him move in. Even if he took the dog now, he probably wouldn't get it medical treatment. And one more commenter who says not the arsehole. Your ex abandoned his dog. You gave him enough time to figure something out. And also a conversation happened below this one talking about some people put up with way too much, and people were talking about other posts that's come up where people have put up with too much, and someone mentioned where a post where the boyfriend tried to kill the family dog and played with a turkey carcass. So we're going to take a look at that one right now. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. So this next story, it came originally from the relationship advice subreddit. It made its way over to the best of Redditor update, coming from a throwaway account that said, my 22 female boyfriend 29 male fed turkey giblets to my parents' dog after they told him not to, among other rude things. We've been together since January, so about 10 months. He has kind of a pattern of being weird or childish in situations involving food. I found myself very embarrassed by how he acted at Thanksgiving with my family today and want to know if I'm being too harsh or dramatic. The first thing was that when my mum was about to start preparing the turkey for roasting, he stuck his hand inside it and pulled out the little bag with the giblets. She asked what he was doing. He asked if he could give them the dog. She said no. They don't feed him anything besides dog food, and they don't want him learning to beg when they're eating. He then got a knife and fork and started dissecting bits of the giblets on the counter, staring at them close up and touching them. I had to remind him to wash his hands. All the while, my mum, brother's girlfriend and myself are actually trying to get stuff cooked. He doesn't offer or ask if he can help at all and just hovers around picking at things and being in the way. I could tell my mum was annoyed. At the dinner itself, he commented out loud several times on food he didn't like. Not just politely turning it down, but comments like, "Ooh, I hate gravy," and "This stuffing has onions. Onions are gross." He asked what type of cranberry sauce there was and then said, "Oh, that's the gross kind." My family definitely noticed. They looked uncomfortable. My mum even offered to make additional food if he wanted something else in particular. He said he was fine with what was there, but then hardly ate anything. My mum felt bad afterwards, and I had to reassure her it wasn't her fault at all. Towards the end of the meal, he left the table. I figured he was just getting something or going to the bathroom. My dad got up shortly after. He later told me that he went in the kitchen to bring out dessert. He found the dog eating the giblets from earlier off the floor, and my boyfriend in the act of scraping a pile of food from various dishes in the dog's bowl. My dad said he was giggling to himself as he did it. What the fuck? He was explicitly told not to feed him people food, and then he did it in secret like a child, and even got caught like a child. I've never seen another adult do something like that. Then back at the table for dessert. He loaded his plate with 2 to 3 times as many sweets as everyone else took on the first time they were being passed around. 90% of what he ate was dessert. When came cleanup time, everyone including my elderly grandparents volunteered to help except him. I had to ask him, and he did a half-assed job and kept inspecting the turkey carcass, pulling bones apart and making a mess of it. My dad, irritated from the earlier thing with the dog I now know, snapped at him to either put it in the fridge or leave it alone. He went back in the dining room and ate more pie while the rest of us were finishing cleaning up in the kitchen. Overall, I'm majorly embarrassed of his behavior. I feel like the mum of a little kid, except a kid wouldn't know better. I shouldn't have to correct the behavior of a grown man, right? And before you ask if he was just anxious about meeting my family or something, He's met them all before several times. Even if he hadn't, that wouldn't explain it because he's done similar things before in front of his own family, when it's just the two of us. I'm tired of the weird way he acts around food, tired of worrying if he's going to get weird looks from other people. As someone in my 20s, I shouldn't be getting reports from my parents that my boyfriend did something rude and immature. They question if I felt like he was on my level. I feel like I generally am happy with him. And then things like this pop up and I remember he has this other side that really turns me off. He's older than me, but I feel like I'm the older one sometimes. So I guess my questions are, how important is this? Is there any chance he'd grow out of it? And what would help that happen? And how would you recommend I bring it up to him? I don't feel comfortable bringing him in around my family again unless he acts normal. So I can't just pretend nothing happened. What the hell, that was some creepy ass behavior, wasn't it? The giblet thing alone is bizarre enough. Imagine being at a side where everyone around you's cooking and stuff and you're stood there at the side dissecting giblets. And then he was told not to feed the dog and then snuck around and did it while giggling like a little child at the same time. And then during the cleanup of all this, he's pulling apart the turkey carcass with the bones and all that. It's just weird. And I think it's clear OP's parents are worried, asking OP if, he's actually on your level. I think it's their polite way of saying, this man is being an absolute child and weirdo here and they're concerned. I just scrolled back up and realized as well, he's 29 years old. The commenter says, you've been with him 9 months. He's demonstrated that despite the fact that he's pushing 30, he's a giant man-child, and the dog feeding was a huge FU to your parents. Why are you with this person? Prove It says, I'm having second-hand embarrassment on your behalf. Imagine having to bring him to a work function/dinner and him acting a fool in front of your colleagues and boss. Drop this dude like a hot potato. You can do better. Princess Crafty Pants says, so let me see if I have this right. A man who is nearly 30. 1 was so bad at being helpful, but he actually got in the way of the meal being prepared. 2 insulted the meal everyone prepared for him. 3, if I'm being generous, he fed your dog unapproved food, but the secrecy and giggling made it feel more malicious. 4, ate too many sweets. This one doesn't bother me so much, but it bothered you, so it definitely matters. 5, had to be scolded away from fucking with an animal carcass while he, 6, again, was so unhelpful that he was in the way of people trying to clean up. I'm curious what other childish behavior he's exhibited in the past around food. If you think more about how he behaves, is it only food? As in, how often is he more obstructive than helpful? How often does he disregard specific requests? Not, don't feed the dog, but maybe where to park, not following directions for laundry, etc. As for your TLDR, about how to address it, personally, all I want to do is sit down next to him, wrap my hands onto my knees and say, so, Thanksgiving. What the fuck? Shay says, I would murder on the dog thing. It's not about begging. It's about pancreatitis. Jesus fuck, that could kill your dog, or at least be several thousands in treatment. Dogs' digestive systems are set up to basically handle one major protein at a time. When you add new proteins and fat, dogs can get very ill. I mean, it was disrespectful too, but Jesus. Fuck with my dog and you're out. 20-some years in and off in vet med and holidays like this are just chock full of emergency pancreatitis. The rest is also ridiculous. He's almost 30, not 13. He's acting like a toddler. This would be a deal breaker for me. Sorry. Opie says I didn't know anything about this. My parents got the dog after I went to college. They joked he's their replacement kid. So I never grew up with dogs or have any myself. This is horrible to think about. I'm so glad my dad stopped him in time. I'm even more pissed now. So OP did come in with her update and said, update, I've broken up with him. I talked about it more with my parents yesterday and realized if I'm embarrassed to honestly answer their questions about my relationship, then that's a bad sign. I found myself trying to give a bunch of excuses to make his weird behavior seem less bad than it was. I also outright lied a couple of times about other things in our relationship. Eventually this got exhausting and I just confessed I'd fucked up and had no good excuse. My mum asked what I thought would be best for me. The answer at that point was obvious. I also left out some details when I wrote my first post. I guess I was too embarrassed to give the full picture. I want to provide it now as a confession thing, but also because I can now more clearly see how fucking weird this man was and just want people to validate that after I spent so long in denial. The giblets he fed to the dog, he fished them out of the trash bin to do that. My mum had thrown them away after he cut them up and made a mess on the counter. He would have needed to dig through the fucking garbage to find them again. My parents found chocolate bars missing from the cabinet. Those were not part of dessert that was available to everyone. We think he snuck them at some point, like a little kid. His general diet is atrocious. It's like what a 5-year-old would eat, except I know there's tons of kids who eat way better. Pizza, chicken nuggets, pasta, fries, chips, grilled cheese, mac and cheese, Lucky Charms and other sugary cereals. Ice cream, candy. Not a single thing that isn't white, beige or some hideous artificial shade of orange or yellow. Whenever I tried to share my food or get something else for him, he'd snap at me angrily. He doesn't have a job. I know. Fully expecting to be raked over the coals for ever accepting that in a partner at his age. When I finally admitted it to my parents, they were like, "Are you serious?" I told them he was in school and living with his parents to save money. He actually was thinking about going back to school, which never took the form of any action, and lives with his parents because where the fuck else can he live with no income? I guess I thought I could help motivate him. I thought that's what you do as partners, support each other like a team. Now I can see there never was any team. It was just him doing what he wanted because he was broke. I also ended up paying for most of the stuff we did together when we went out. Some people asked about the part where I said he did similar weird food things with his family. You guys wanted to know how his family reacted. They didn't. They'd either pretend not to notice or else thought it was normal. I'm not sure which. He did things in front of them like blowing bubbles in his drink, cutting grains of rice in half with his fork over and over, and eating ice cream directly out of the container instead of spooning it into his bowl. There was one time his parents were going to take us all out to dinner, and when discussing which restaurant to go to, they eliminated a bunch because they didn't have anything boyfriend would eat. His mom would sometimes serve him a completely separate meal if whatever she'd made for the family was something he refused to eat. Opie then did a small paragraph about the sex being weird. There's some descriptions in there that I just can't read because it's likely to get me pulled up on YouTube. But basically it sounded like more immature comments. It was only one-sided. He criticized her pubic hair, criticized her boobs, never did anything for her. Opie continued after that saying, "So that's pretty much that. I'm unspeakably embarrassed I ever dated this loser. Sad thing is, if not for my parents insisting on talking with me about it, I'd probably still be dating him. But who knows how long. Thinking this is just what it's like. Well, it doesn't have to be. I'm very grateful they helped me see that he wasn't normal. Thanks for all the same comments on my first post. Seeing that consensus also made me realize I needed to leave." Bloody hell, the more you read that, the more it was just absolutely wild, wasn't it? 10 months you put up with that. Like I was saying at the start, the whole dissecting thing and stuff, it's almost like something you see in the start of a serial killer movie, right? Someone was asking in the back of this, what the fuck did she even see in him? The bar is so fucking low that Satan is doing limbo. But it is absolutely true, and I hope OP does recognize that and expect better from relationships in the future. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Serious Function 177 from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit, and it asks, "Am I the arsehole for making my wife ride in the back seat because she couldn't stop distracting me? This happened over the holidays, and my wife is still upset with me over it. Our family went to visit my in-laws for New Year's. It's about a 3 to 4 hour drive. Mostly highway, but it takes us through 2 metro areas with pretty significant traffic. My wife, 37 female, gets nervous about driving in traffic, so I always drive when we visit her family. She also tends to get car sick on longer drives and needs to sit in the front seat to help ease it. She's tried taking Dramamine in the past, but she's had an allergic reaction to it, so she doesn't take it anymore. I love my wife with all my heart, but she is not good sitting shotgun. She makes huge reactions to any change in traffic, grabbing the handle, putting her hand on the dash, gasping, telling me to watch out, etc. It's not like I'm an aggressive or risky driver. I've never gotten a speeding ticket or been in an accident. But if there's a car half a mile ahead of us that puts on their brakes, she freaks out and acts like we're about to die. It's incredibly distracting. I've talked to her multiple times about how her reactions actually makes it more difficult for me to concentrate on driving, but she says she can't control herself because she's nervous in traffic. On the way to her family's place, she sat up front with me and traffic was pretty bad. Lots of slowdowns due to weather conditions and in general just kind of slow going. But I've been driving in cold weather my whole life and know how to control my speed and give lots of extra space to any surrounding cars. I understand that you can't control anyone else on the road and that accidents happen, but I do everything in my control to keep my car and the people inside safe. The entire drive, my wife was on edge, making all the reactions I mentioned. It's very distracting to have someone next to you doing that sort of thing while driving. I mentioned this to my wife numerous times on the drive, and she always deflected blame at me for the way I was driving. When we were getting ready to head home, I told my wife she needs to sit in the back and our 14-year-old son will sit up front with me. I told her it's either that or she drives us home. She got upset with me and started giving excuses about her car sickness. I told her to take some NyQuil or something else to help her sleep, but she refused and told me I'm being a jerk. I told her she can drive then, and she refused that too. Eventually, she reluctantly got in the back seat with our 11-year-old daughter. The ride home was much easier traffic-wise, and my wife sat pretty much silent in the back seat the entire time, pouting. When we got home, she told me that she felt ill the entire drive, but didn't say anything because she didn't want to make a big deal out of anything. She told me I humiliated her by making her sit in the back, and that I should be more considerate of her feelings. Mysterious Elk says you should say your feelings matter, but you proved on the way home you can't control your actions, which is what I'm asking you to do. My request is not about feelings, but actions which make us unsafe. Baydoodle says this: I've been a passenger in several accidents in my life. Yay, getting driven around by a parent on heavy medication who should have heeded the do not operate heavy machinery rule, and honestly it has given me several nervous responses anytime I'm a passenger for others. Trying to stomp on an invisible brake, panic grabbing the safety handle over the door, giving panic orders when they are unneeded, etc. My wife is extremely patient with me about it, but I also work hard to control those outbursts. It was hard at first. Hella hard. Sometimes it still is. One thing I have learned is to focus on when I am high anxiety is breathing and relaxing each of my muscles. Force my eyes closed, focus on the radio or our conversation. I basically try and meditate. Point is, you should never out your anxiety on the driver. That will only make their driving worse. Shocker. LDI says you need to point out to your wife that she is actually putting everyone in the car in danger when she sits in the front seat because she cannot control her reactions to traffic. You need to point out to her that the safety of your family is more important than her feelings. Your family is safer when she is sitting in the back seat. I'm saying this as someone who has exactly the same problem that your wife has when there is traffic. It literally terrifies me if I'm the passenger. I either have to be the one driving the car or have to be sitting in the back seat with my nose in a book or using my phone to surf the net. And one more comment from Mooney who says not the arsehole. I'd refuse to drive her anywhere. That's unacceptable and dangerous. So what has she done for her anxiety? Therapy? Medication? It's selfish to expect the car to deal with her outbursts and do nothing about it to help herself. Your kids could grow up and learn the behavior. I've seen siblings develop vaccine anxiety after a childhood of watching their sister or brother hyperventilate and cry over getting a vaccine. Now she gets to pout and be passive aggressive. Nope, her anxiety doesn't get to dominate the comfort and safety of the family in the car, especially if she hasn't made any steps to help herself. And I think the majority of the comments were just going along those kind of lines. But what do you guys make of this situation? Maybe this is one that you've dealt with yourself at some point. Let us know down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care and much love.